Alexandre de Moraes, who is determined to throw people in jail when he disagrees with their speech, or when he's taking some political operative that he is trying to please, when he's trying to take that person down. And he throws them in jail. He raids their homes. He steals their property. You're going to hear stories about that today, which is in part why we're having this press conference and why the hearing happened on Capitol Hill today. Baseless lawsuits that are brought against people who, merely for being journalists, and in the case of some people who will be talking today, legislators in the National Assembly, in their parliament in Brazil, they're being thrown in jail too, or intimidated. This has got to stop. We cannot continue this in Western democracies. We need the strength of our convictions to stand up for human rights. These are human rights we're talking about. Fundamental human rights that no government gives to any human being. Inspired by our Declaration of Independence, which says that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, rights that cannot be taken away. That belief in the origin of rights has inspired the world, including Brazil and other countries, to create free government in their own countries, because we started it so effectively here in the United States. So I am privileged and honored to be able to have this group of heroes from Brazil, to host them here with what we're doing now. And I'm so thankful for Chris Smith and the House Foreign Affairs Committee being willing to host them there as well. So with that, we've got various speakers today. I'm going to introduce our speakers. I'll be introducing them as they come up. We're going to let them speak for a short period so you can learn more. And then afterwards, we'll be willing to take questions from the audience. We are live streaming this right now on X, so people can totally see what's going on. And we want to thank every one of you for joining us today. With that, I want to introduce one of the participants in the hearing today, Paulo Figueiredo. He is a journalist from Brazil who was kicked off of his platform by Alexandre de Moraes when he was in the United States, simply expressing from here his ideas about Brazil, his knowledge of things. So, folks, I want to allow Paulo to speak a minute, and then we'll go to our next speakers. Paulo Figueiredo.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. First of all, thank you for Jim Pfaff and the Conservative Caucus for hosting us, also for Heritage and hosting us as well. Of course, the American House of Representatives have our deepest gratitude of the Brazilian people for letting our voices be heard. And that's so difficult because I have some of our best members of the Brazilian Congress here, and so often I get from them, well, sometimes you can say, well, we can't, because you're in the United States. And that's very sad to hear, because we're talking about very articulate people that have, they all have parliamentary immunity, so they were supposed to have even a broader protection for their speech than I have. And they can't say what is important for our country. And our country has several debates that it needs to overcome. One, of course, is the electoral debate. We have 9 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 voters of President Bolsonaro that do not trust the Brazilian system. We're talking about millions of people. Their voice needs to be heard. And it's the job of the press to speak on behalf of citizens, as well as the job of the parliament to speak on behalf of whom they represent. So some of you know my story. I was one of the most known journalists in Brazil. My show on TV, primetime TV, used to be #1 show in the country, voted the best political show in the country. We used to get more viewers than the second and third network combined. That includes CNN Brazil, which I know beating CNN, it's not much anymore. It used to be, but right now, still, my show is the #1 show in the time slot on the internet. And again, I'm beating all the competitors. So one day I woke up with I had a friend that worked in a social media company saying that she received an order from the Brazilian Supreme Court saying that they needed to take down all my social media platforms. We're talking about 5 million people across multiple platforms. And all companies got the same notice. And I was on vacation and skiing in Wisconsin, so I wasn't quite expecting it. Then I found out that the order was way broader. It was not they were not only blocking all my social media, but they were also canceling my Brazilian passport and freezing all my assets. So when you live abroad, which has been my case since 2016, your passport is your citizenship. It's the only document that you have that proves that you're a Brazilian. So basically what this judge, I should say, or not, Alexandre de Moraes did, he took away my citizenship for challenging his work as a public official. So it's the job of the press to challenge public officials. That's what we do. And I'll keep doing it. The moment that he did that, well, of course, I was a little sad. I became unemployed a few days after. And, well, that was how I made my living, right? How I provided for my family. But at the same time, I was grateful to God and to Moraes as well, because it gave me a new purpose. My new purpose would be, I don't have the power to end the Brazilian dictatorship. I'm just a man. But I do have the power to make sure the world knows that Brazil is a dictatorship. I do have the power to put light on Moraes as a dictator. And that's what I have been doing for a little over a year and a half. And I have been having great allies in this process. Some of them abroad, like the Conservative Caucus, like several members of the U.S. Congress, most preeminently Chris Smith, but not only him, Maria Salazar, who spoke very well today. We have Congressman McCormick and several other members of the House. I also been having a lot of allies in Brazil. For example, Congressman Eduardo Bolsonaro, who's here, he was one of the first members of the Brazilian Congress that realized the importance of having international connections. And he opened a lot of doors. And I don't know if I should say this because they have been targeting you because of that, but I couldn't do it without his help. Senator Eduardo Girão, who had to fly back to Brazil, also has been a great ally since the beginning. I have found in Congressman Gustavo Gayer. Gayer is, you can't stop this man. He's a first-term junior congressman, but he's unbelievable. The fact that Brazil has congressmen like him gives me hope. I have Congresswoman Bia Kicis, also, always an ally, always a defender of the rule of law, with all the experience that she has, making sure the law is followed. I have several other members of Congress. I can't mention all of them. Congressman Nicholas. I have now made me very happy to see in this delegation former Congressman Dalton Dallagnol, whom I have heavily criticized in the past. But he's the former prosecutor that successfully convicted Lula for corruption And then he was unconvicted. But that's a different story. My point being, I think we have a great team here. And we're not going to stop. This is just the beginning. We made it, I think, a significant step today. But again, it was just the first step. Legislation imposing restrictions to Brazil, which the congressmen don't support. They do not support it, but we're doing it anyways. Legislation against the Brazilian government and Brazilian public officials who violate free speech is coming. We're going to other countries. We're expanding our network of allies in Europe as well, and even in Asia. Other countries will hold hearings. The truth will set us free. The world will know what's going on in Brazil, and I believe the Brazilian institutions will act and restore our freedoms. We don't believe in any intervention from a foreign country in our sovereignty. But I do believe that the United States can become a force for good, as it used to be, instead of a force for censorship, as it is right now under the Biden administration. It's very sad, Jim, to be discussing free speech and to see members of the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party used to be the party of free speech. And now they're defending censorship openly, finding excuses to defend censorship. And this is very sad. It means America is in trouble. If it's happening in Brazil, it can happen in America. If you asked me 5 years ago if Brazilians would lose free speech, I would say, get out of here. This is not going to happen. It did. It was fast. And it can happen to America as well. As someone that lives in this country and that has 2 American daughters, this deeply, deeply concerns me. So Americans, fight for your freedom. Fight for free speech in the world. Because it used to be the shining city upon the hill. Now not anymore. And you've got to change that. Thank you.
And I have to say, it's embarrassing being an American where every one of these people from Brazil that are with us in the audience, they've always been inspired by what the United States has stood for. And it's embarrassing as an American citizen to know that I have a president of the United States and Democrats, including those in this hearing today, who were trying to accuse Paulo of things. It's absolutely absurd and crazy. But we are dedicated as an organization, and I'm dedicated to working with these brilliant, amazing people who are actually sacrificing everything. Many of you here in the audience as well who have come here. And we're going to stand with you, both by doing a good job in our organization to secure freedom here in the United States, but also to shed light on what's happening in Brazil and certainly in other places as we need. Okay, next, I am very honored to introduce Eduardo Bolsonaro. He is in the Congress of Deputies. His father, Jair Bolsonaro, is former president and a great man, someone that many of us admire, like we admire what Donald Trump has done in the United States. So Eduardo has an amazing message. I'm going to let him take a little bit of time to talk, and I just want to say how honored I am to be able to have him as well as everyone else here. So, Eduardo.
Thank you, Jim. Sometimes people think that only speaking is not that much. Sometimes they come to us and say, oh, Eduardo, what else can I do to help the cause of the freedom? But by speaking, you're helping a lot. I was talking with my friend Alan dos Santos here before coming here, and I think it's the first moment that I see Alexandre de Moraes in the corner, receiving a lot of critics all around the world. I never saw he in this situation. And for the first time I saw him going to the Senate. Imagine someone like him that thinks they're even maybe bigger than God, have to call the senators and go to the Senate asking for a meeting to make sure that no one is going to push forward impeachment. This is a lot to him, trust me. This is a lot to him. But it shows that we can have hope. As the senator, which you have a statue in the plenary of the Senate in Brazil, né? Como é que esqueci o nome dele? Fui falar. No, the philosopher, que tem o busto, tem estátua no plenário. Rui Barbosa. Sorry about that. As he was used to say like 100 years ago, the worst dictatorship is dictatorship that comes from the hands of the judiciary, because from this one, you have nowhere to appeal. Yeah? And now we are here in the United States because we do believe that the voice coming from here, you can make pressure to try to bring back our democracy, our true democracy, not only by the narratives that they say. It will have a cost. As we all know, Ludmila Lins Grillo, I saw your video and you said very, very well about that. If Alexandre de Moraes was smart enough, he would study history, and he should know that all the dictatorships, when they are going to the end, the first one to fall is the one that is on the front line of the dictatorship. So I don't think that Alexandre de Moraes is the smartest one in this game. I think that he's only the one that is punching, and he's the only one that do not have a heart and sending ladies of 71 years old for 14 years in jail, just like he did a couple of weeks ago. And this is not brave, this is not courage. This is disgusting, this is unfair. This is something that as a man, I do not respect him as a man, because I change places and I put myself instead of the places of these people. And if I would be Alexandre de Moraes, Dr. Dallagnol, I would never convict a lady of 71 years old that cannot barely throw a rock and treat a lady like that as a terrorist. For sure, if they were doing trafficking drugs, murder, if they were this kind of criminal, they would never had 14, 15, 16 years in jail. So sometimes people say that, oh, Alexandre de Moraes, he has a lot of courage. No, if there is something that he doesn't have is courage, because he's using his position in a very disgusting way to try to smash an opposition. It's the only way that they have to keep in power, because they did everything against us. They call so they have to censor us. And when a dictatorship tries to censor us, we have to do exactly the opposite. It's talk, speak, tell all around the world what they are doing, because this is exactly the thing that they don't want to know. They don't want everybody to know about that. So they would be comfortable to spread this Brazilian virus that is a very special thing. That the things that we are having in Brazil is that the censorship is all over around the world, but coming through the hands of the government. Brazil is the only one case in the world that the censorship is coming through the hands of the judiciary. And they are exposed by meetings in London, Paris, New York, as we are all looking. And if they're comfortable to do that, they will keep doing. And maybe they are going, Jim, tomorrow, bring that to here. It's the same story. When you talk with our friends from Venezuela, they say, Eduardo, like Eduardo Bittar, Eduardo, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, I would never imagine that Venezuela would be in a place like that. And it's a country just as rich as Brazil. They are very rich. They have Amazon, minerals, water, tourism, everything. And look how they are. So yesterday was Venezuela, today Brazil, tomorrow maybe United States. So you are right, Jim. When we look to United States, we think that here is the home of the brave, the land of the freedom. And we are really happy from one side to be here, sad from other side because the reasons that we are coming here. But in the end of the day, it's giving us a lot of hope by speaking, by showing to everybody, by looking that they are not comfortable in their situations. Doesn't matter if they are creating narratives to take our passports, because after we visit here Mr. Chris Smith, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and George Santos in December when we came here to the US Capitol, going to the end. Then a couple of weeks ago, we went to the European Parliament, and while we were there in Brussels, an article from Agência Pública, which is a media supported and financed by George Soros, it started to say that me, Gustavo Gayer, and some other congressmen, we are running abroad of Brazil, trying to connect the fascist and the anti-democratic people to try to attack the vibrant democracy in Brazil. Okay, it was an article from the press. But then a couple of days later, a federal police report came up talking that the anti-democrats like me was like having a space on X, live streaming on X with Marion Alpha, and they quoted other congressmen. And after that, the same narrative was spoken by the president of the Supreme Court, Justice Luiz Roberto Barroso. So as we are not beginners in this game, when you see an article by the press, financed by George Soros, then you see a federal police report, and then the president of the Supreme Court start to say the same thing, is because they are preparing the field to come take our passports, at least. So we have to tell all around the world what is going on in Brazil to keep mobilizing the people, because in the end of the day, our home is Brazil. We love United States. I want to come here, but for vacations. I want to build a better Brazil. Thank you very much.
And by the way, I just want to say, Eduardo talks about when he mentioned about what they might try to import here in the United States, how we could fall. Paulo also talked about this. I heard Congressman Wild, the Democrat leader of the House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee today, literally express a desire for there to be communist, socialist ideals to be inserted in this country. There are many Democrats in this country that are determined to reproduce exactly what's going on in Brazil in every way that they can. They made it very clear in the committee hearing. I can tell you this, the conservative caucus and our grassroots members all over the country, we're not going to put up with it. We're not going to allow that to happen. We are going to work hard to be the last bastion of freedom for the world. And it's one of the reasons that I want to stand with these people who've become so much of my friends. And Eduardo's got his name on the line. His dad, actually, they'd love to throw into jail. I guarantee you they'd love to throw him in jail too. They can't, because at least there is enough freedom there to make the case. And so we're glad about that, and we want to help them be strengthened in it. Now, as for another friend, I want to introduce someone who over the last year has become one of my dearest personal friends. And in a way, amongst a few other people, helped inspire my understanding of why I needed, in any way that I could, to help take up this fight. His name is Alan dos Santos. And I just want to say, Alan dos Santos is literally, for those hearing this on the live stream or elsewhere, literally the most canceled journalist in the world right now, definitely in Brazil, without question. And every Brazilian here will tell you that this is the guy. Paulo has been severely restricted, but Alan, it's crazy. So much worse. I'm going to let him tell a bit about your story. You're my dear friend, and I'm just glad to support you in any way that I can. So take the mic. Your turn.
Thank you, my friend. I started my YouTube channel back 2014 just to copy some things that it's happening in the United States back then, creating an independent media that can say the truth and unmask the mainstream media. I did not realize that years later I would be retweeted by President Donald Trump and talk to a lot of people in the United States and become the biggest independent media outside of Brazil too. I mean, outside of the United States, it used to be the biggest independent media in the world. But I would like to address this is a speech for three kind of people. First, kind of people like my wife that stood for me, even being a part of my presence for 3.5 years, holding the babies without my presence, day and night. And these kind of people, like my wife, are here too. Most of these congressmen, for me, are just humans, friends, not bureaucrats. Friends that outside of the Congress are the same as inside Congress, because they stood for me in the worst part of my life. For these kind of people, thank you so much. Secondly, the ones that came later, like Elon Musk, that don't know me, but also stood for me and stood for a lot of journalists defending freedom of speech and making our job keep going. And the third kind of people is the kind of people that are cowards, like Joe Biden. I really need to address this speech in this country to the most coward person in this country, which is Joe Biden, destroying the most powerful country in the world. I have freedom here, and that's why we are fighting against everyone who is destroying freedom in the United States. And why I'm doing it? Because, Alan, are you crazy? Are you already in the United States? So comfortable? Why do you want to call out Joe Biden, right? You could talk about many things, like the psychopath Alexandre de Moraes. You could talk about everyone, but I need to remember, if you keep silence or running away like a coward and not standing for freedom, what are you going to give to your children? What are you going to give to God? Because all of us are going to die. In front of God, we are not congressmen, journalists, famous or not famous. God doesn't count how many followers you have. We all gonna die. We need to stand for freedom as the people that stood for freedom and kept this flag for us. Every time I see the US flag waving, I tell my wife and kids, even the youngest ones, I tell them, a lot of people died for our freedom. I found freedom in the United States not because of a piece of paper, but because a lot of people died for this country. So what about us? What are we going to do? Enjoy the money of capitalism? Going to Disney? Meet Mickey Mouse? You know, we need to fight for freedom. And this is what we need right now. We need to think like those people that died for us and kept this flag waving. Now we have the stupid idiots in university burning the United States flag. I don't want to, no harm for them. But they should get out of this country. Get out of this country if you do not defend freedom. Get out of this country if you're not in favor of freedom of speech. Not because you're not welcome here, because you have freedom here. But do not stop all the voices that can criticize what you're doing. The message I would like to give for you all, first of all, it's we all gonna die. I know it's not new, but we all gonna die. And I would like to address to all American people what are you going to give to your children and for the future generations after you? You're going to be remembered as the grandfather, the unknown grandfather, coward, that was sleeping comfortable in your home while everything was just being destroyed? Or you're going to be remembered as the grandfather that stood for freedom and lost everything? This is what we are facing right now. It's not about election. It's not about politician. It's not electoral battle. Sadly, I was talking to Mr. Schellenberger that it's pathetic that you need to convince the other party about freedom of speech. It is pathetic. Because imagine back to 1776, they have different views. I mean, if you take the founding fathers, they really thought differently from each other. But they realized some things cannot be taken because it was given from God. It's God-given rights. It's not about politics. It's not about right and left. It's about our human nature. It is pathetic, but I also think it's diabolical to start a conversation with someone that needs to understand why freedom of speech is important. It is also a mental health problem. Beloved Brazil was born fighting for freedom. And now, freedom is a political debate. If it was my show, I would say some cursing here, but I can't. But honestly, tonight I do that. But honestly, what the heck is going on? If we need to explain why freedom of speech is the base ideas to live together. Tyranny is not a political debate. Tyranny is not a, like a right or left to wing. I mean, lefts love tyrants, but at least shouldn't be like this. And we need to talk to our religious leaders, co-workers at the university or college or whatever you do, you need to start like this, talking to the people saying, wait a second, freedom of speech, it's not a political debate. If you do not defend it, you are a tyrant too. You just don't have the opportunity to arrest me and put me in jail. But you are a tyrant. And we need to understand that for now on, we need to have all the kind of issues to solve. Not freedom of speech. Freedom of speech can't be an issue, can't be a problem. Because when you do not have freedom of speech, we are not talking about a country, we are talking about prison. We are all arrested when we need to talk about freedom of speech. It's shameful even for Democrats not standing for freedom of speech. And that's why I started saying, Joe Biden, you are a coward. And I hope in November, if you still think freedom of speech, it's not something that will keep this country amazing, I wish and I pray that people in the United States will vote to put you out of the White House. Because here is the land of free. We need to defend freedom. If someone do not defend freedom, that person should go to China or Cuba or North Korea, but not in the United States. Not in the United States, where my fourth son was born. So finally, I just would like to say, if you are American, and you think that's never going to happen in your country, as Eduardo said, Paulo said, and all our friends from Venezuela said, be careful. In front of me is a former congressman that shouldn't be former at all, because it's not written in law. And we never thought that could happen in Brazil. I would like to remember Daniel Silveira, which is arrested in prison for no crime. That is not allowed in a free society. Shouldn't be. So be aware when you think that in the United States you have laws and constitution that stands for you. Be careful. Tyrants do not read laws. They just kill and arrest people as they want. So be careful and get all the cowards, tyrants, outside of the bureaucratic building of the government. Fight for freedom, fight for your life. God bless the United States. God bless you all. Thank you.
And by the way, I want to point out for those here in the United States who might not know who Daniel Silveira is, he is a member of the Congress of Deputies in Brazil who was literally arrested merely because of expressing his disagreements with Alexandre de Moraes. This is a huge problem, and it should never happen in any country. So this for those who know what's going on with this, it's an outrage, and that's why we're meeting here in Washington, D.C. for all of this. So thank you. Okay, now, I have no idea. First of all, there's a good reason why I started off with the group I did. Both Alan dos Santos and Paulo Figueiredo have been journalists who have been canceled in Brazil, and Paulo spoke with the committee. And then Eduardo Bolsonaro, literally his family is on the edge of destruction every single day, merely because one man sitting in a court seems to feel he can do whatever he wants. And there are those, especially the President Lula, who are willing to act on it. It's a shame and an outrage that his family has to go through what they're going through. So now that's obviously why they start. The rest, gosh, I feel really horrible to even make an order at all, because the three people that are going to be speaking with you and then the other legislators who are here with us, every one of them should have the opportunity to speak with you. They're brave. They're doing what needs to be done to stand for freedom, and we need to be standing for them. With that said, a couple weeks ago, Jair Bolsonaro was doing having an event at Copacabana Beach in Rio de Janeiro. I was watching live. My Portuguese, I'm still working on, apologize. But Gustavo Gayer, he came up and spoke in English to everyone. And I shared this, and I had, I think, 400,000 people just on my post alone talk about it. He had a message for America that I know that he will be able to share with you now. He's in the Congress of Deputies and becoming a good friend, a good man, Gustavo Gayer.
I think I have to start by saying thank you. You have my eternal gratitude, Mr. Jim, for everything that you and your staff have been doing, have done, all the generosity taking your time to listen to us, to care about what's happening in Brazil. And we will be forever grateful and forever in debt. Thank you so much. As I was listening to my colleagues come here and say their piece and speak their mind, I was wondering, how did we come to such a point in which we have to organize a press conference, a meeting, to talk about something so obvious as freedom to speak your mind? The foundation, the pillar, the fundamental pillar of any democracy. If democracy is the will of people, how can you know the will of the people if they are not allowed to talk, if they are not allowed to debate? How is it that we've come so down, so in the bottom of everything to a point in which we have to defend something that we believed it was conquered for eternity? Something that we wouldn't have to worry about anymore. We keep learning at school about the Dark Ages. The Dark Ages, how everything was bad at the Dark Ages, how people were prosecuted without due process, how one totalitarian system chose people to execute and destroy their lives, and that way they were able to stay in power indefinitely. Are we living in the Dark Ages again? Because by the definition that I've just stated, it seems like we are going back into the Dark Ages. With all the technology, with all this access to information, we're living in a time right now where people are afraid to say what they think because they can be prosecuted, they can be arrested, they can have their life destroyed, their passports seized, their bank accounts frozen, their reputation completely destroyed. But is that good for democracy? What democracy is this that they are trying to convince people that in order for it to continue existing, we have to shut up millions and millions of people? How did we come to such a point? Well, like my friend said, I have been a congressman for over a year and 4 months, I think. I'm actually an English teacher. And hopefully I wish my country to go back to being a full democracy so I can go back to doing what I was meant to do, which is teaching. My life is in a classroom, and that's what I want to go back doing. Being a congressman, it's a sacrifice. It's a gap from my vocation that I think I needed to do in order to give my kids, our kids, a free country. I was in Europe recently with some of my colleagues that are here today, and during the speech, I defined that what's happening in the world today, that's not just in Brazil, that totalitarianism is a virus. And like any virus, it has the ability to adapt after a certain time. Society evolved and created institutions and tools and press and many things in order to avoid totalitarian people to reaching power, to avoid dictatorships to existing again. But just like a virus, the totalitarianism desire, the totalitarianism hunger of certain people adapted and were able to bypass all the system that we put in place in order to never let a democracy exist again. And when I say that the world should be looking to what's going on in Brazil, because Brazil is the most advanced experiment on how to implement a dictatorship disguised as a democracy. A dictatorship that you have the institutions, you have press, but you cannot say anything that they don't like or your life will be destroyed. I keep saying that Venezuela has Supreme Court, has parliament, has prosecution, has a president. But then if I ask any clear-minded people if Venezuela is a democracy, the answer will be no. It is not a democracy. Brazil is at the same level. And every time me and my colleagues that are here today that I consider great warriors, because to be here today saying this is putting your life at risk, is having the risk of when you go back to Brazil being arrested at the airport and have our lives destroyed. But we chose to do this because what we are fighting for is bigger than our own freedom. We are choosing to run this risk because what we are fighting for is not for us to benefit it from, it's for the population of our country, for our kids, and now, as I see, for the population of the whole world. If what's happening in Brazil succeeds, if they are able to convince the world that Brazil is a democracy, even though they are arresting parliament, arresting the congressmen, arresting journalists, sentencing people without even a base, a foundation for the sentencing, censoring people on social network, then it will metastasize. It will go to all over the world, and the world will copy what happens in Brazil. So Brazil is the most advanced experiment of this new dictatorship. And we need to cut this evil on the root. And the root is happening in my country. Just the fact that we are here, my friends, we know that we are setting a huge target on our backs. And that's why I'm very proud to walk alongside each and every one of you. That's why I'm very proud to say that I walk shoulder to shoulder to everyone here. Alan dos Santos, who suffered so much but never gave up on defending freedom of speech, democracy, and the search for truth, which nowadays is a crime. Search for the truth. That's why they want to censor us. Truth is a value that you only achieve it through debate, through discourse, through communication. You will hear opinions that you abominate, but the search for truth requires you to go through that. And when you silence millions of people in a country, and when you start determining what can be said and what cannot be said, you are abandoning the search for truth. And you never gave up, Alan. And for that, I commend you. I might be here saying, but I really have to say all my colleagues that came here today, because it requires a lot of courage to be here and defending freedom of speech and then going back to a country like Brazil the way it is. Cabo Gilberto, who is here, also in the fight, Marcos Polon, Eduardo Bolsonaro, Bia Kicis. We have here Deltan Dallagnol, who in our heart is still a congressman. Nicolas Ferreira, a phenomenon, one of the greatest congressmen in the world today, not only in Brazil. Felipe Barros, Rodrigo Valadares, and everyone who came here. It's a pleasure to be beside you guys. I might be here now speaking on this microphone, but to the merit, the credit, it goes to all of you. To finalize my speech, a message to the world. Ever since regular people started having voice with internet, suddenly freedom of speech became a risk for democracy. Isn't that strange? If democracy requires opinion, how is it that when internet came along and social media came along and that took away the monopoly of what was said or the right and wrong opinion, and every single person in the world who has access to internet suddenly started having voice? How is it possible that when everyone started having voice, suddenly freedom of speech is the greatest risk for democracy? The truth is, there was never a democracy. There was always a system choosing who would be in power and who wouldn't be in power, and you only watched as a bystander. And now people can actually participate in the democratic system. People can actually talk about political topics, and suddenly that became the greatest risk for them. So we are here to say that we will not give up on our voices. We will not stand down. We will not run away from the fight, because what we are doing is not for our own benefit, like I said, it's for the future generation. We have one goal in our lives: to give a better world for our kids. And we are here today fighting for that. Our children live in a free country, in a free world. So doesn't matter what country you're from, doesn't matter if you're from Canada or Australia or New Zealand, stand up. Be fearless. The world needs fearless people, people with courage and brave to fight for what is right. They are trying to destroy our most fundamental right, which is our freedom of speech, our voice. If they succeed in doing that, we will have no weapons anymore to defend any other right. Stand up. Fight for what's right. Look at what's happening in Brazil. We will win. They will not be able to defeat us. And you can use Brazil as an example with the rest of the world, because my friends and I will not give up. That's it. Thank you.
And by the way, on the back end of this hearing in the United States Congress today, I just want to tell Congressman Wild, who was unrighteously, unjustly attempting to claim that Paulo Figueiredo was trying to endorse some sort of military coup on the country. You absurd, obsequious congressman. Do you understand that what you are doing is endorsing those very things yourself by supporting a regime presently in Brazil that would undertake these efforts to put every one of these Brazilians, not just the legislators here, not just the journalists, but even some of the individuals who come up here, to put them at risk of loss of life and property and of their freedom? You horrible congressman, Congressman Wild, you need to repent of your attitude, because it's an attitude that is in opposition to everything that freedom stands for. You do not stand for freedom when you act in that way. You stand against it in every way. So with that, I want to do something more mild and say my wife, Myra, and me had the opportunity when we first had a meeting in March with legislators here after the Democrats canceled a hearing. We had gathered up for them to meet in another venue here in town. And my wife, Myra, and I had a chance to speak with someone who is a wonderful lady, a brave woman and legislator, Bia Kicis, who is, I'm so thrilled to be able to introduce you to in this event today. So with no further ado, Deputado Bia Kicis.
Well, my friends, thank you all for being here. Jimmy, thank you so much. According to Ronald Reagan, the most dangerous words in the English language are, I'm government, I'm here to help you. And now, government wants to help us, taking away from our lives the fake news, misinformation. They are really willing to protect us, and we should be grateful for them, shouldn't we? So in the case of Brazil, when we say government, we actually say deep state, because not only the executive power, but also the judiciary, specifically some judges from the Supreme Court. They are very, very devoted to stop us from having access to information, because they really want to protect us. But there is one thing. The only way you can fight misinformation is with more information. You can only fight lies with truth. You cannot fight the lie, the evil, if you shut down everyone and if you keep all the information away. So we are here to fight for free speech. We are here to fight for freedom. And we know that free speech is the pillar of all the rights. But when you don't have free speech, you lose the means to fight for other rights and constitutional guarantees. Like now in Brazil, we have these people, thousands of people, who are politically persecuted, who are arrested because they don't support what's going on in the political scenario now in Brazil. And these people are behind bars, facing 17 years, facing 14 years of conviction. And if you don't have free speech, you can say that to the world. So when you take free speech, you take other fundamental rights away as well. Like, people in Brazil cannot talk about our electoral elections, our system. We can't talk, it's forbidden. Because if we talk about it, if we doubt and we debate it, they might have to change the system. So that's why we can't talk about it. So if you take free speech, you take all the others' right as well. That's why it's the pillar, it's the most important right that we have. I was watching Benny Johnson's channel in Instagram one of these days. He was doing a live, and he showed a video from Nancy Pelosi about 12 years ago, and she was telling people, and he called that a moment of insanity maybe. She was telling everyone in the audience how the Democrats here, the leftists, how they do to persecute the right-wing people. So she said, we build a narrative, then we spread this narrative to the press, and the press comes with this narrative, publishes this narrative, and then we use this narrative to process the people. That's what we do. So she was showing the recipe 12 years ago of exactly what they do, and they do it now. So that's why Gustavo said, when you see in the press, I think it was Gustavo who said, I don't know, when you see something being built, a narrative, like we came to the United States, we went to the European Parliament, and so now we are doing anti-democratic acts, we are dangerous people, we are gathering the fascists of the world together. You have to pay attention to that. It's not only rubbish. We have to pay attention. This is the way they build the narratives, and these narratives will come towards us, against us, maybe and probably in the judiciary. Especially now that in Brazil, we don't need the prosecutors to come after us. The judges can do that themselves. We have no longer the due process of law. So that's why it's very risky for all of us to be here. We know, we are aware of it, but we know that people in Brazil, they count on us. They count on us being here and speaking out what we have to say on behalf of all the people in Brazil, the people who believe in freedom, people who are desperate for freedom and for justice. So there's nothing else we can do. There's nothing more important. And now I would like to send my love and our solidarity to all our friends and the Brazilians in Rio Grande do Sul, in the south of Brazil, those who are suffering because of the rains, because of all the damage they have, people losing their families, losing their houses, losing everything. And some of our very dear friends like Marcel Van Hatten, like Zuko, and some others couldn't come, couldn't make it here with us because they are supporting those people there in their states, their home states. But we are here. Our hearts are with you. But we have this mission that we have to do, and we will keep going on. We won't stop. We'll get stronger, and now we'll get stronger because of you, Jim, because of Elon Musk, because of Michael Schellenberg, these wonderful people who care for us. And of course, they know that what's happening in Brazil can happen here in the United States, can happen anywhere in the world. We saw that Trudeau is building a law now in Canada that police can run after you for something that you posted, something that you said even before the law. Anything you put in the social media can come against you now. This is happening in Canada. This is happening in many countries where the leftists, where they rule the countries. That's why we really need to get together, to be stronger than ever, and keep fighting for freedom, my friends. Thank you so much.
Okay, next person. Oh, yeah, oh, sorry. Next person. Oh, sorry, no worries. I want to introduce Deputado Rodrigo Valadares. He is going to speak here also. We have him and one more speaker, then we'll take questions. Thank you for your patience as we move along, because we want to be able to get this message out and give you plenty of opportunity, and also for our guests here today who are very concerned about this issue. So thank you, press, for your time, taking time with us. So with that, Rodrigo Valadares.
Thank you, Mr. Jim Path. First of all, I want to say grace to Jesus Christ, our Savior, our Lord. And I'd like to thank you, Mr. Jim Path, and your lovely wife for hosting us here. Thank you for everybody that's here. Our Brazilian friends, our colleagues, our American friends, they are helping us to defend our democracy, right to freedom. First of all, I would like to give a special thank to my leader, Eduardo Bolsonaro, that's over there, that is traveling the world, making the best connections to defend the freedom in Brazil, to defend our democracy, putting his life in risk and his family. Eduardo, you are very inspirational for all of us. Thank you very much. I am a member of parliament, as many of here. And in our constitution, the Article 53 guarantees that I cannot be punished by what I say, by my opinions, and by my votes. It's a constitutional right. And why is not happening? Why me, as a congressman, I cannot say what I think and what I want to say? Because I have a great risk to lose my mandate, to be put in jail. What is happening in Brazil? What are they doing what they are doing? I have to answer they are doing because they can. They can because they have all the support of the national big media. They have all the support of the establishment. And they were feeling very comfortable putting 70-year-old ladies. It's not 7, it's 70, 70-year-old ladies with a Brazilian flag and the Bible to jail, facing 17 years in jail. 70, the same number that Bolsonaro used in his first election. What a coincidence. What's happening in Brazil, I don't want to sound repetitive, but what's happening in Brazil, like many friends said, we could never imagine. Brazil now is like a laboratory rat, an experimental country. They are doing in Brazil what they want to do in the rest of the world. Brazil is a big country, it's a great country. And if they succeed in Brazil, don't have any doubt, they will try this in America. They will try this in Europe. They will try this all over the world. And they were feeling comfortable until a man stood up and rise and said, no, I'm not going to follow these illegal orders. These illegal orders that's all under the umbrella of fake news, misinformation, disinformation. All of these, they sent to social network platforms to censor, to deplatform, to ban people. And just one man, Mr. Elon Musk, stand and said no. But I want to leave a question here. Twitter or X is not the only platform in Brazil. It's not even the biggest platform in Brazil. And those illegal orders that both violate Brazilian and American law in Brazilian soil, Those orders probably is being followed by Facebook, by Instagram, and why are they not saying anything? Does the American law allow them to be violating a law in a foreign country? I don't think so. Does the American law allow them to violate American law in a foreign country? I don't think so. But now it's happening in Brazil. To finish my speech, I want to say, like Gaia said, like Alan dos Santos said, you can take our mandates off, like you took Deltan Dallagnol mandate. You can put us in jail, but we'll never give up. We will never surrender. Because will come a day that God will raise his hand, and in this day, no evil will be standing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rodrigo. Absolutely. One last person, Nicolas Ferreira, will come up here. He will greet you as well. A big rising star in Brazil, but a great patriot for the country. Come on up. And then afterwards we'll have questions.
Hello everyone. Thanks Jim for that. My English is not that advanced as the other ones that talked here before, but I try to speak and communicate with you guys. I'm here because I believe in what I fight for. And for me, it's a pleasure to fight with these guys, Eduardo, Bia, Gaia, Alan, Polon, Gilberto, Felipe, Deltan, Rodrigo, Ludmila, and all of you guys that are here, Gabriela, because we know that we were feeling lonely in Brazil, because we saw one person doing injustice to our people, and we, in our beds, when we go to sleep, and we think like, what we gonna do? Like what we can do. And one day when I went to prison to see the people that were arrested by Alexandre de Moraes, I spoke it to them, and they were like crying and saying, please help us. And I was honest with them. I can't do much. But I told them that I was going to do everything that I could. And months later, a guy called Clazão, he died in prison, and he had already a statement saying that he should be free. And Alexander just ignored him. And he died in prison because of that. And I went to velório, and I went to his funeral, and then his children was crying, and then one told me that don't forgive, don't quit this fight for us. Don't let my father be don't forget them. Don't let this happen. And then this just went through my heart. And then since then we made a big protest in São Paulo, and there were a lot of people there. And I saw that for the first time in my life, I was in a protest and I wasn't happy. Because we protest for many things in Brazil, like for Bolsonaro, for our elections. But that day, like my heart was broken because I couldn't smile, because a person died, and I felt that I couldn't do anything. And I felt that all the people were standing there like feeling the same, like we can't do nothing. And I'm gonna be honest with you. Sometimes when I pray, I say, God, what can I do? And then suddenly a guy like that, he doesn't even know us, like our lives, who we are. He shares like a video, he puts the free speech in the world and tells that he's gonna fight for free speech in our country. That guy is Elon Musk. maybe for some people this is like just a video, just a post on Twitter, but it means a lot for us. Like it means that we are being heard. Like it means that we can talk, we can speak, people can hear us, and we're not going to be in jail for that. One day after I spoke to Elon Musk in space, the Supreme Court opened an investigation against me because I raped someone, because I made corruption. No, because I called Lula, our president, a thief in United States speech. So if a deputy can't say that our president is a thief, what a citizen, a common citizen, can speak? Nothing. So it hits a pasture. This censorship hits a child, a teenager, a student that it's in his classroom, and he can say anything because maybe he can be in jail for that. This actually happened in Brazil. A teacher said that he can't say that Lula is a thief because maybe he can go to jail. So it's not about us. It's not about like, oh, we are deputies here fighting for our freedom. No, it's for our freedom as country. And we have like victims of that. Daniel Silveira, it's a friend of us. He's not only a deputy that was there and he worked and he was a nice person. No, he was one of like us. He was one of us. And he's now in one of the terrible prisons that we have in Brazil. And they took his internet, his social media, and it means that basically that he doesn't exist anymore. If we don't speak about Daniel Silveira, Jim, actually he's like gonna disappear from the world. And he has a child, he has a family. And so what we can do about it? But not only a deputy. I talked to a woman that was sentenced for 16 years. She didn't do anything. She didn't do anything. And she was sentenced to jail for 16 years. When I talked to her and said the word prison, she was like hitting her legs, and she said one phrase that is never gonna get away from my mind. She said, or I'm gonna be dead when they come here to put me in prison, or I'm gonna kill myself in front of them when they come to arrest me. She has a son, 8 years old. She has a whole family. She is like a common citizen. And when I got out of there, I was like, what can I do? So when you guys hear us, it's not only like an afternoon that we are talking here to you just to like do work. No, we are here. I talk here not like a politician. I'm being honest. I'm talking here like a person that feels what other people feels. Like if this woman were my mom, as Gabriela's father is in jail right now, what was I was going to do? I was gonna be here. I was gonna be here. I was doing the same thing that I'm doing right now, because I think our purpose is more than just politician elections and say vote on this side, vote on that side. I think that we have a purpose here on earth. So when you guys hear us, when you guys support us, it means that we are changing lives. When people there in prison, maybe they hear that we were here, people are listening to them, and they may get a hope from this chaos. Maybe their heart's gonna be filled with some hope, and maybe they don't kill themselves. Maybe they're gonna have a strength for fight for their family, and that what moves my heart. That what makes me stand here with my bad English, but I stay here because I think that my voice maybe can reach some people. Like I think that we can make we can make the change in this world. I think we need to do persistência. I think we need to persist more than our enemy. Like our president is a socialist president, and I endorse here that he's a thief. Put me in jail for that, and I don't care. but listen. Yeah. So I'm gonna put you guys in jail because you clapped, okay? And he's a socialist president, but he run for presidential elections 3 times. So it's like 12 years fighting for being president. How can I fight for the truth can be less persistent than my enemy? I can't do that. So we need to stand for freedom, stand for our families, and I don't think, I'm sure that God is with us. Thank you, sir.
Obrigado, Nicholas. Seu inglês. Seu inglês é muito melhor que meu português. See, that was a challenge for me. You did quite well. What I said was, thank you, Nicholas. Your English is much better than my Portuguese. So, for those English speakers in the audience. Okay, I want to thank everyone for being here. In fact, I want to share something, and then we'll go to questions. And I appreciate everyone's patience. I think this was quite well worth it. All of us thought it because we're very concerned. I want to talk about, and her name I always have difficulty with, but Flavia Magalhães. I want to tell you a quick story before we leave. And this is one of the reasons why here in the United States, we need to pay attention to this story because it could happen to us too. She's a 47-year-old, divorced, and she has a son. She's a Brazilian and an American citizen. In 2003, she came to the United States. In 2006, she met her ex-husband. In 2014, she joined social media. She started on Twitter campaigning for Trump and was very excited for him. But then afterwards, was very excited for Jair Bolsonaro. She reached 100,000 followers. 10 months ago, her ex account was banned in Brazil. In December 2013, and this is the scary thing, she went to Brazil. She was going to go to her dentist in Brazil. She offered up her Brazilian passport, and fortunately, the gentleman in customs who took it didn't get her arrested because she found out suddenly that Moraes wanted to arrest her because of her Twitter account. Because of her Twitter account. Because she was just a housekeeper who loved Jair Bolsonaro and loved Donald Trump. I think it's mostly because of Bolsonaro, but it could have been both. Alexandre de Moraes requested a warrant for her arrest. She offered her Brazilian passport was taken away. She offered her U.S. passport. She got in and back out. She called me. She contacted me because she heard about my support of what's going on here. Scared to death, wondering, can I even go back to my home country, even with an American passport? This is what's at stake. And in candor, the way that I hear Democrats and even just a few Republicans talk in this country about disinformation and misinformation, as we heard in the committee hearing today, where Democrats were accusing people of merely expressing their opinion, of being people who supported military dictatorships and the overthrow of governments. It's quite the opposite. In the absurd way that politicians around the world are thinking, the way that they want to entirely shut down forever speech that is to the right of center, typically, and about liberty and freedom, we are on the precipice of a disaster. We are on a precipice worldwide of the destruction of the liberty that was first considered 300 to 500 years ago, but was put into law here in the United States with the understanding, as Thomas Jefferson wrote in the Declaration of Independence, that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. There is no government that confers rights to anyone. The only proper role of government is to secure those rights that come from God Himself. This is the battle we're under. It's a much more dangerous battle in Brazil. And I honor the bravery of these members of the National Congress that are willing to sacrifice their time and their lives even to stand for it. They're going through it much worse in Brazil than we are in the United States. But as they rightly say, and as I have been asserting for some time now, it could potentially not be far behind here in the United States if we're not careful, if we don't assert those rights. So before I close, everyone from the National Congress, if you would come up here, and Alan and Paulo, if you can, please. No, we'll get there. Please come up. We'll get to questions in a moment. Nicholas. This, folks, I want every one of you to see this, because this is this is a brave group of people. These are people who stand up for liberty worldwide. This, folks, is the group of people in Brazil that you need to look to understand what is required to stand for freedom. They are under threat every day of their lives. Their threats are very severe. In the United States, we have thankfully many other legislators that are under threat, but they're under threat of losing their accounts right now, or getting shut down, or deplatformed, or whatever. And it's bad enough, but this is much worse. So with that, I want to offer a quick prayer for them, and we'll close this part of the event and then take questions. But Heavenly Father, we ask for strength for this group of people. Sustain them. Carry them as they feel weary or weak at times. Protect their families. Guide them and give them wisdom. We pray for the release of Brazil from this dictatorship that is upon them. And we pray that you would protect America from going down this path too, so that our countries together can show forth the beauty of freedom worldwide. Not everyone will choose to follow you, and we have no ill will or anger against them, except where they may, or anyone else who follows you may, seek to destroy the liberties that come from God and not from these governments. We stand with God's design for liberty, not man's design for intrusive and insecure government. So we lift these people up to you in the name of Jesus Christ, and we ask you to help them and strengthen their hands in all they do. Amen. Amen. So thank you. Now we'll take some questions. If anyone has questions, we'd love to talk to them. Yeah, thank you.
Vicky from Cuba.
Go ahead.
So I have a question about why weren't there more Republican congressmen there? Because we all hear about that the Democratic Party is actually a party for free speech. They send 4 members, and they are actually just clouding the whole hearing with non-important topics which not actually were related to the topic. But then we had one congresswoman who were actually there asking questions and actually
Well, to begin my answer to that question, let me first of all thank Congressman Chris Smith for doing so much incredible work in this area. And he and his staff have done amazing things to address this issue because he sees what's so important with it. As for the other congressman, now Congressman Salazar made a fantastic defense of freedom, and she was fantastic. I really applaud her. For the rest of them, I don't know. This is one of the most important hearings that we've had on Capitol Hill, definitely in this Congress. For the last year and a half, there have been maybe a handful of other hearings equally as important. This one was no less important. So it's shameful that they didn't show up, in my opinion. And I just really, I want to know where their heads are at. I mean, I understand the battles that are going on in Congress right now. There is over, we have a motion to vacate that's being considered and all this rancor in the Republican caucus. But this is the thing that every one of them should be most concerned about. So I think it's a great concern. Does anyone else want to address that at all? Eduardo.
Very sadly, but there is a huge difference because we are fighting for free speech. We do believe that this is a principle, and as you look around here, and as you could listen to the people that talked here before, like there is a bench of criticizes that in the past we criticized each other here. For example, Alan dos Santos already talked, criticized my father, criticized my brother. I had some opinions that I do not agree with Deltan Dallagnol, but it doesn't matter. We are all, everybody here together, connected, because we do have principles. The left, their only one principle is seek for power. So it doesn't matter if you are stealing money from the taxpayers or whatever, if this is for their cause, so this is right in their mind.
Nós vamos persistir, nós vamos conseguir vencer essa batalha.
Nós vamos derrubar esse regime.
Não importa quanto tempo isso demore, eles não irão vencer.
Mas para isso nós precisamos ser fortes. Nós, eu digo, inclui vocês. O povo vai restabelecer a democracia no Brasil.
A gente precisa do seu apoio, a gente precisa da sua ajuda. Financie esses meios de comunicação alternativo que estão quebrando a hegemonia da imprensa mainstream.
Não existe conteúdo gratuito. Tem alguém pagando pelo conteúdo que você consome. Se está na Rede Globo, quem está pagando é o Lula. E o que a gente tem? A gente tem vocês.
Quando você se inscreve, quando você assina financeiramente, tudo isso é um passo importantíssimo para que aquela mensagem chegue a mais e mais pessoas.
Hoje, neste momento, o Show da Manhã do Fio Diário é o número 1 da internet brasileira em programas de notícia. Então eu faço um apelo a vocês.
Eu imploro isso para vocês.
Se inscreva no canal do Fio Diário. Assine o Fio Diário.